No matter where you live, the big city, the green suburbs, or somewhere in the great wide open, we all share the same habitat, planet Earth. We know that increased CO2 in the air traps heat, warms the planet, and ultimately makes life unsustainable. We know what we have to do to stop or reverse this trend, dramatically alter the way we use energy and reduce it. But we haven't. Well, what if we could maintain the Earth's temperature by keeping the sun out in the first place? In the future, we may keep the planet cool by pulling down the shades. Up in Scotland, engineer Stephen Salter and physicist John Latham want to put an adjustable sunroof over our heads.
We think we can cool the Earth off a bit by making the clouds over the sea be a little bit whiter.
The principle is pretty simple. The whiter something is on the Earth, the more sunlight it reflects back into space.
The clouds we want to work on are called marine stratocumulus clouds. They're quite low down, they've got flat bases and fluffy tops.
Ocean covers 3/4 of our planet, and most sunlight hits the deep blue sea. But if there were more white clouds, less sunlight would be absorbed by water, and more of it would bounce off the clouds and back into space, thus cooling the world. The atmosphere absorbs solar energy at the rate of about 340 watts per square meter. Human industry has increased that number by 0.5%. Increased cloud cover could reduce that number by a full percent, more than offsetting man's effect on the temperature. But we're talking about changing the color of clouds, kind of a tall order. Let's break down a cloud. First, we know that the whiteness of a cloud is determined by the size of the water droplets in it.
And if you have a lot of small drops, you get a white cloud. And if you have a small number of big drops, you get a rather dark cloud. And we know that because when it's going to rain, the drops got very big, and we say the dark storm clouds are gathering.
If we can turn those big, dark droplets into little tiny droplets, we'd have the same amount of water, but the cloud would be whiter. Salter thinks he can do this by adding little drops of seawater to a cloud. The seawater evaporates and leaves behind salt crystals. These crystals spread out around the cloud and break up big droplets. The more droplets, the whiter the cloud.
And if we could double the number, we get about 0.05, 0.06 increase in reflectivity of the cloud.
Salter's calculations show it's surprisingly easy to turn a giant black storm cloud into a planet-cooling white one.
You have to put a rather large number of drops up, but the volume of water is actually surprisingly small. Maybe less than 10 cubic meters of spray a second would undo all the damage we've done up to now for the whole world.
Seems simple. Add water to the clouds, Earth cools off, and we all live happily ever after. Except for one small detail. How do you get all that seawater up in the air? With an ocean cruiser from the future, known as the Cloud Yacht.
I call them spray vessels. Yacht sounds a little bit sort of...
Pretentious? Maybe. But it's probably easier than calling them saltwater shooting, cloud seeding, planet cooling boats.
The spray vessels are probably going to be a trimaran hull, 45-meter waterline length, 300-ton displacement, with 3 rotors about 20 meters tall.
Salter's idea is to launch a fleet of some 50 seawater smokestacks to strategic places around the globe. A sophisticated set of rotors replace traditional sails and serve the dual purpose of powering the sailboat while throwing seawater up into the atmosphere.
All the energy to power the boats comes from the wind. Wind produces a big force on the rotors, much bigger than you get on sails. This pushes the boats through the water, and the movement of the boat through the water drags turbines through the water, and the turbines generate energy. There's a spray release nozzle about here inside each rotor.
The spray shoots up about 30 meters into the air, where it gets picked up by what's known as the marine boundary layer. At that height, natural turbulence in the atmosphere pulls the droplets of seawater upward into the clouds.
And that goes up to maybe 800, 1,000 meters above the sea surface. And you get a nice even mixture.
These spray vessels would be automated and unmanned and could set sail anywhere on the high seas that could use a cloudy day. Whiter, brighter clouds may sound like an ad for laundry detergent, but they might just work. Problem is, they'd be very expensive. billions of dollars expensive, and we don't know whether they'd mess with Mother Nature in other unexpected ways.
There are some possible effects on rainfall, and you would make the monsoons a bit stronger. What we need to do is to learn when and where it was safe to do the spraying.
At this point, this armada of cloud whiteners exists only as 3D computer models and engineering blueprints. But with the warming world, cool ideas like this just might be worth a try.
If you really wanted to go efficiently at it, we could be having our first one going in about 5 years.